Welcome to the May 3rd, 2023 meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. I'll call the meeting to order, and the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll ask you to join us. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is attendance.
Steve Mundy,
Present.
Chris Lake,
Present.
Andy Piquel, present. Kathy Postlewaite,
Present.
Larry Jones, present.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the April 11th, 2023 minutes. Those were included in the package. Are there any questions or concerns or corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lake, for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Postlewaite. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. They are approved. In continued business, we have had a request on docket number 2023-05-DSV, D. Fleener, 10663 Barrington Way, Zionsville. The petitioner's representative has requested a continuance, and I believe it was a client that passed away and he was responsible and could not be here tonight. So he is requesting to continue this until the June meeting. There are no objections. Could we have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, sir, Mr. Piquel. All those in favor of continuing docket number 2023-05-DSV to the June meeting.
What is the date of the June meeting?
June 7th.
The 7th?
Yes.
June 7th, just to get that on the record then. Thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is approved to move to the June 7th meeting. The next item on the agenda is docket number. Let me first, though, ask you, do we have any virtual attendees? We have one. Okay, if they wish to enter at any time with comments, please let me know. Thank you. Next item is docket number 2023-08-DSV. C. Cantner at 11750 East 200 South in Zionsville, petition for development standard variance to provide for an accessory structure which exceeds the permitted accessory square footage in the rural general agricultural zoning district. Staff, could we have the staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. The petitioner is proposing to construct a 3,360 square foot barn. The added square footage will be over the permitted primary square footage, thus not being subordinate area. The size of the residence is 3,382 square feet. And with the proposed accessory square footage, it'll bring the total to 4,064 square feet. It should also be noted that the petitioner has an existing barn that he plans to demolish once the new barn is constructed and has committed to do so as part of the BZA approval. Due to the residential history of the property and deviations from this requirement in surrounding properties, staff is favorable of the request, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Hearing none, is the petitioner here?
Yes.
Mr. Cantner?
Yes.
If you would come to the podium and state your name and address, please, and then you can fill us in on anything else that the staff did not cover or anything that you think they did not cover adequately.
Fair enough.
Anything else that you think would be helpful for us to know?
Yeah, fair enough. My name's Craig Cantner. I live at 11750 East 200 South in Zionsville. our purpose in doing this, my wife and I bought our fixer-upper about 16 years ago and have been working diligently doing that. And part of what we discovered is a lot of things that were built at our home were home built. One of them is the horse barn that we currently have that has simply outlived its life and it needs replaced. We've done everything we could. We've re-roofed it, we've re-sided it, we put concrete in there. It is done. We need to replace it. Part of what also does not function well at our home is our attached garage. It is a 3-car garage, but one of the bays is full of mechanical devices. It's the furnace, it's the heat pump, it's the water heaters. And so it's basically a 2-car garage that I can't fit my truck in. So it's kind of a 3 single bay garage that we can fit a Jeep Wrangler in. So it's kind of a space that's not very feasible as a garage. So what we want to do is build a bigger barn. And so when we proposed the size of the barn, it fit. It's 20 square feet less than our living space. However, I soon learned after that proposal was sent in and rejected that we had to include our attached garage as accessory space, which doesn't make sense to me, but it is what it is. So I could see a detached garage being counted as that. So the thing we are trying to overcome that serves no function is now hindering us from moving forward with the barn that we propose. The other part about it is as we've been fixing up our home, we're not going to build this ourselves. We're going to employ FBI builders, which is professional pole barn builder, to make sure that it fits the surrounding communities well. Our neighbors each have professionally built barns that fit well with it. And so we were certainly not going down the path of a home builder type of barn. We're going to make sure it's done professionally. And so it fits in well with the surrounding community that we live in. So technically we're less than our living space. Technically we're also over because we have to add our attached garage space to it. So that's all I'm asking is if we could just pursue the construction of the new facility that would be, I guess, a little bit over the square footage it's allowed because of our garage.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner?
What I have is really not a question. It's just a compliment. I want to congratulate you on Schedule A that you've submitted along with this petition, because it's clear and concise a statement of not only your current situation, but what your goals are, as I think I've seen. And I, for one, am very appreciative. It would make our job simpler if everyone were able to do that for us. So
Not
thank
bad
you.
for public education, huh?
Darn good, I would say.
And you've seen staff reports, so you are amenable to having the old barn demolished.
Oh,
within
100%.
30
Yeah.
days after completion of the new.
Be happy and to raise it for sure.
Okay. The fire department does not like for you to burn those things, by the way. So
Yep.
if you had thought of demolishing it in that way, please don't.
No. Yeah, we'll take care of it.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Are there any remonstrators who would like to speak for or against this project? Any online? Nope. Hearing none, is there any further discussion among the board? No further discussion. Is there a motion put forward?
I move that docket number 2023-08-DSV Development Standards Variance to provide for an accessory structure which exceeds the permitted accessory square footage at the property located at 11750 East 200 South Zionsville in the Rural General Agricultural District AG be conditionally approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report and staff recommendations, submitted findings of fact, substantial compliance with the submitted site plan, and the condition that the existing barn, 30 foot by 40 foot, must be demolished within 30 days of the proposed barn being issued a temporary certificate of occupancy. Once the existing barn is demolished, the proposed barn will be able to obtain the final use and occupancy permit.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Postaway. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Good
Thank you
luck
very
with the
much.
project.
Thank you.
The next item is, and I'm going to call this out as two items. There are two separate docket numbers, 2023-09-DSV B Slack at 1480 North 1100 East in Sheridan, Indiana. Petition for a development standard variance to provide for two primary dwellings on one lot in the rural general agricultural zone district. The second petition item is 2023-10-SE. Again, B Slack 1480 North 1100 East in Sheridan. Petition for a special exception to provide for a new single-family dwelling and related accessory on a parcel in the rural general agricultural zoning district. Staff, could we have the report on those, please?
Yes. The petitioner is proposing to construct a second primary dwelling, which includes one car garage, one bedroom, one bath, kitchen, living space, and a small office, which will be at least 1,200 square feet. While this constitutes a secondary primary dwelling, it's more so a detached accessory apartment for a family member to utilize. Further, since this is in the agriculture zoning district, it requires a special exception for a single family residence / primary dwelling. The proposed secondary dwelling does not significantly change the use of the property and does not exceed the overall density of the surrounding properties. Therefore, staff is favorable of this request, given that they record a right to farm commitment and a commitment which restricts utilization of the approved dwelling to be used for non-income generating use only. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Can I get clarification on drawing 1.01? There's a 2-car garage, yet your description says 1-car garage. Can you clarify which is correct?
I think I'll ask the petitioner to speak to that, because
I
I'm
can
not
ask when
sure.
they come up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what this looked like digitally, but on paper, I could not read anything on the drawing. It was so fine print. It was hard for me to make out exactly what was being indicated on the.
Yeah, I mean, the label calls it out as a two-door garage is what it calls it out as, and there's 2 cars on there. So I'm assuming it's a 2-car garage, and I don't care one way or the other. I just want our petition to be accurate. And if we're calling it a 1-car garage, we should probably make sure we change that.
Any other questions for staff? Hearing none, is the representative of the Slacks here, Mr. Slack? If you would give us your name and address, and then tell us as well anything that we don't know about this petition that you think would be important for us to know.
My name is Brad Slack. I live at 1480 North 1100 East in Sheridan 46069. So we spent like 10 years developing our house from raw ground, and now that project is completely finished. So now we're working on the outside, and part of that was to put pool in and then a pool house. We didn't overbuild our main house just because we don't like huge houses. But my wife's from Europe, so she has family that travels over and does extended stays. I've got a son with a slight disability that might need a place so that he can kind of progress out into life. And my parents are Asian, so we decided to see if we could build a 1-bedroom, 2-car garage apartment for those uses on our property. It would be set back from the main structure. It would be lower than the overall height of the main structure. But the development, the architectural costs are about $40,000. So we're still kind of playing around with that. Because we wanted to have a full kitchen, it would be considered a secondary primary. And then the minimum square footage is 1,200 feet, the square feet. So that's basically what we're looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any questions for the petitioner? You do understand that, as was indicated by staff, there will be, we'll need to give an acknowledgement to the right to farm. And that the apartment is not being used as an income generating unit, that it would be used for family or guests.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
we've already signed the right to farm once.
If you-
on our-
you-
Sorry, we already signed the right to farming once on our main structure, but I'm happy to sign it again.
Right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Are there any remonstrators that are here to speak for or against this project? Not online. Thank you. Any further discussion among the board? Is there a motion? And it will be two separate petition items, so there is a motion on the DSV first.
Sure. I move that docket number 2023-09 DSV Development Standards Variance to provide for two primary dwellings on one lot in the Rural General Agricultural Zoning District AG be approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report and staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, substantial compliance with the submitted site plans, and a commitment recorded to the execution of a zoning commitment, restricting the utilization of dwelling units on the property to non-income generating occupancy only.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Postlewaite. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is passed. And then on the special exception,
I move that docket number 2023-10-SE, a special exception petition for the property located at 1480 North, 1100 East, Sheridan in the Rural Agricultural Zoning District AG. Be conditionally approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report and staff recommendations, submitted findings of fact, substantial compliance with the submitted site plans. Shall be required that the petitioner execute the right to farm acknowledgement document and a commitment recorded to the execution of a zoning commitment restricting the utilization of the dwelling units on the property to non-income generating occupancy only.
thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Piquel. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Best of luck.
Quick note, did we confirm it's a two-car garage?
He did state, yes, it was a two-car garage.
The next item on the agenda is docket number 2023-11-ESV M Hollis at 10550 Pete Dye Ridge, Zionsville. Petition for a development standard variance to decrease the rear setback to provide for a swimming pool in a Holiday Farms planned unit development. We have a staff report, please.
The property is currently under construction for a single family residence, which has been permitted. The petitioner is proposing, which has not yet been permitted, for an in-ground swimming pool, which encroaches into the 30-foot setback. Per the petitioner on the site plan, the request for a 23.5-foot rear yard setback would encroach 6.5 feet into the required rear setback. The proposed pool would be 25.5 feet from the rear property line, but the concrete pool deck would be 23.5 feet at the closest from the rear property line. Within the town zoning ordinances, pools are considered accessory structures to residential uses. Many residential zoning districts have a decreased rear setback for accessory structures, which is less restrictive than primary structure setbacks. However, in the Holiday Farms PUD ordinance, there's no accommodations to allow for a decreased setback for accessory structures. This would include, so essentially all the setbacks are the same for the residence, pool, detached accessory structures, patio, deck, etc. It's staff's opinion that strict application of the PUD does not result in unnecessary hardship in use of the property. The site is not unique or provide unusual circumstances of the condition of the site. The building permit for the residence was issued in December of 2021, and the location of the swimming pool and the attached pool deck were not identified on the plot plan at that time. Options remain open to the petitioner to move the pool or reduce the size and/or reduce the size of the concrete pool deck. Based on how the current PUD ordinance is written today, staff is unfavorable of the request, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
I do have one question. There's nothing about this lot that precludes the setback as it is. The pool is not necessarily forced to be positioned in a way that it encroaches on the setback based on the lot itself.
Not in staff's opinion, no.
Something else I just want to confirm, because I've kind of went back and read through the PUD. Holiday Farms in the PUD, there's no lot coverage ratios they need to meet.
Correct,
So they can build from setback line to setback line.
correct.
So basically, any kind of expansion over the setback lines is basically increasing the buildable area. Okay, it's just my question.
Are you still working on a question, Larry, or?
That was a question.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
I wasn't certain if you were.
There is no lot coverage ratios
Correct. Okay.
associated with the PUD and Holiday Farms.
Any other questions for staff? Hearing none. Is the petitioner here?
Yes.
Mr. Hollis? Is
No,
it,
I'm Adam Mears.
if you give
attorney-
your name
Yep.
and address, please.
Sure. Thank you, members of the board. My name's Adam Mears. I'm an attorney with Gradison Design Build, also Gradison Building Corp. Our office is 6330 East 75th Street, Indianapolis, 46250. I'm here on behalf of Mark and Kim Hollins, our client. I think there is some uniqueness to this petition. I know this clearly, I saw on the agenda, there's 3 of these that were going to be considered today. I know in January, there was one that was approved into this setback. So this is not a unique request that we're asking, but in this case, based upon staff's report, which I know mentions the original ILP, where this wasn't considered. And I do want to talk to that. We started this home with a client that is not Mark and Kim Hollis, completely separate individual, started the home, however far we were through the house when that individual, for whatever reason, decided he didn't want to proceed any further. Thankfully, he was able to find Mark and Kim Hollis that were interested in kind of coming into a plan that had already been designed for somebody else. And they kind of assumed the project from there, became the new owners, and that's when they decided they wanted to put the pool in. Clearly, if we had done this with them from the beginning, we would have had that on the original ILP and gone through it at that time. But they came in, made some modifications to the plan that they're able to, considering we were already moving forward with building, was already under construction. And then they had chosen to add the pool at that time. So there wasn't a pool planned when we originally filed the original ILP because it was a different buyer who didn't want a pool. We do have HOA approval. HOA, we met with several times. They've seen these plans. They've approved these plans. This is not a home that backs up to another home. It backs up to a pond. I think most homes in Holiday Farms don't necessarily back up to another home. They're either backing up to the pond or the golf course. However, this home essentially, all it has behind it is a pond. So it's not as if this 5 or 6 foot encroachment is going to disturb somebody behind the house. It's simply just going to be slightly farther towards the pond. I think it's also important to note, as staff said,
normally accessory structures aren't held to the same standard. So in a lot of, I think that's why you're seeing a lot of these types of variances, because it's not as if we're asking for a large structure to go beyond. It's simply a small portion of the patio and a small portion of the pool. To reduce it would essentially make it to where there's not hardly any patio. And again, I think for the value of the lot, for the value of the neighborhood, the fact that the HOA, who's clearly the largest stakeholder, when it comes to the neighborhood and the sellability and the look of the neighborhood, they don't have a problem with it. We've heard nothing from any surrounding neighbors that have had a problem with it. So we believe it's a great plan. It's going to look great. It's going to, I think, increase the value of not only that lot, but the neighborhood as a whole, and would ask for your approval. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So good.
Thank you, Mr. Mears. Questions from petitioner's representative?
Was the plot plan ever amended for this property?
No.
So is the plot plan correct, or is your plan for the residence with the pool correct? Because both are aligned differently on the site.
So that the house is where it is. It starts up at,
Per the plot plan or per the drawing with the pool on it, because they're not oriented the same. The plot plan has the one side of the house on the right side parallel to the property line. The pool drawing has the building canted probably 10 degrees in opposition to what is shown on the plot plan.
well, at least from the way I'm looking at it, it appears as if the house should match the plot plan. I don't know where Oasis, who did this drawing, maybe they just laid it out. But yeah, I mean, we started the house with the plot plan. It's been inspected.
It just affects how much of the pool sticks over
Right.
the setback line.
Yeah, and I think Oasis they're the ones who did the calculation showing the 5 feet that we provided to staff. And I know that clearly there'll be a new ILP for the pool that'll come in and show that layout. But I'm under the impression that clearly the original plot plan that was approved is what was used when we started the home. So the footprint of the home should be what was approved by the plot plan.
If that's the case, then their drawing is incorrect. And the dimensions they have on their plan are incorrect. And so I don't know how keen I am on deciding on a petition that's not accurate. That's my personal opinion. I don't want to speak for anybody else.
I would agree with you.
Well, I'm happy to, if continuing this till next month to allow me to go back and confirm those things, I'm happy to do that.
I have another question for you.
Uh-huh.
At the time that the new owner took over the house and determined that they did want to have a pool, did they come into the planning office and discuss how that might be sited so that they could respect the setback that exists on that property?
No, I think the original step was, we spent a lot of time with the HOA going through it with them, and did not, I don't believe that anybody came in and talked to planning about that at the time of the layout.
So they were unaware of the setback line, or they were aware of the setback line?
I don't know. My guess is clearly it's easy to see when you see it on paper that there is a setback line there. I'm sure anybody who looked at it would see that. But I can't speak to what they actually saw. I mean, I know that they knew of one neighbor that had come in and gotten a variance for the pool for a similar that was approved. And I think for whatever reason, they had some belief that was allowable since it's been allowed already.
But you would understand that each case is taken individually.
Sure,
There's
of
not a
course.
precedent.
Of course.
So my other question would be, did the pool contractor understand? I mean, typically pool contractors will know what the setbacks and the for each
They
lot.
did.
And did they understand that this was going to be encroaching on the setback?
Yeah, I mean, they did the drawing that shows it encroaching. So yeah,
Right.
they would have known that.
But they didn't deal with the people in the planning office about this, I take it. There were no discussions with the planning office about the setback.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
I think where you're going is my frustration of draw it the way we want it.
Yeah.
Not the way it's required to be, and we'll go get it approved later.
So, and the idea is that the imposition of this setback should be a hardship. It's not that it should be an inconvenience. which is what I am interpreting, that this is an inconvenience for many of these. People would like to have a pool and they can't justify or they can't figure out how it should go on the lot. But
Or they don't get quite as much patio space.
they don't get quite as much patio space. So it's not really that it's a hardship. It's just inconvenient that it's not going to allow them to do what they would like to do on that piece of property. Is that,
I hear what you're saying. I don't respectfully, I don't know that I agree one way or the other. I
you don't
think,
have to, it's
yeah,
fine.
no, I understand what you're saying though, sure.
And I guess what I want to clarify is that with the previous situation where we granted a variance for a pool, the representative from the homeowners association from Holiday Farms was against us granting that variance. Is that correct?
Yes.
I
Now-
don't know that we know that. What we do know is that they emphatically told us they hadn't approved it
At
The
time, yeah.
at the
architectural,
time.
the architectural review board.
At the
Yeah,
time-
I
at the
don't
time it
think
had been
we-
denied.
Yeah, I don't think we know what their position was other than they had not approved it.
I would concur with that statement.
I mean, they presented that they were told they can't build it.
But
And
they
that
had
was
gotten,
in
if
the
my
minutes.
memory serves me, they had come into the planning office and had been made to understand that they could do it. And it had started, consequently, it started on the construction.
Yeah, so that
And
was,
that
that
was-
was different.
That was the difference, I think.
Now we're being told that the homeowners association is approving this. Is this correct?
That is correct.
So my earlier comment regarding setbacks and a lack of any kind of lot coverage ratio kind of ties into my second statement, is that if Holiday Farms wants to change their setbacks lines, they can petition the plan commission to do that. If it does show up in front of the plan commission, I'm going to request a revised drainage study for the entire Holiday Farm subdivision, because we have no control over the amount of buildable area on any of these lots. And if the developer is going to start changing the buildable area, that affects stormwater runoff. It affects the retention ponds. So if the Holiday Farms group wants to approve these variances, I think we should be able to request that they then revise the drainage plan for the entire Holiday Farms subdivision and show to us that there is the water retention and management for this additional areas that they are now developing. Till then, I see no hardships. I see no issues.
Well, I
You
think
know,
my comment was, if the house is oriented the way that it is on the plot plan,
well, we don't even have a,
I don't know that the pool, it won't stick into the setback as far as it does. And they may find that making a 2-foot adjustment puts them in compliance and solves the
I
entire
have
problem.
no interest in actually participating in anything where we're granting
Oh.
approvals and then waiting on
Oh, no, yeah, no.
drawings to match whatever the hell we approve.
I'm absolutely suggesting that be figured out prior to, not after.
I would also just submit that the HOA, as much as they may be in agreement with this, they are really not in the position to make a decision about whether it's allowed or not. I mean, Paul's.
I mean, clearly we have to come
Board of
here. So
Zoning
yeah,
Appeals,
I agree with that. I think we couldn't do it without their approval.
Right.
So it's just one of the steps to make. I guess respectfully, I would ask if we could table this for a month, allow us to go back to Oasis, make sure that that the layout is accurate, and see if that, how that modifies things, and come back next month with that updated information, if that would be acceptable.
Well, let's see where we get on this. That's very likely, or it looks like it's going. I think it might be beneficial to go ahead and let's see if there are any remonstrators who have other things which you may need to look at as
Sure.
well. And Mr. Lake's point, clearly, when you look at the aerial photograph, the house is positioned differently than it is on the drawing. So enough different that, I'm not even sure the drawing could possibly be right, but we need to know that. Any other questions for the petitioner's representative? Are there any remonstrators here to speak for or against this project? Any online? Seeing none, is there any further discussion? No further discussion among the board. Is there a motion? The petitioner has indicated they were perfectly fine with requesting a continuance until the June 7th meeting so that they can get the plot plan and the actual position of the house on the lot squared away for us and then return.
I move that docket number 2023-11-DSV Development Standards Variance to provide for a deviation of the rear yard setback to 23.5 feet for the construction of a swimming pool and concrete deck for the property located at 10550 Pete Dye Ridge in the Holiday Farms Planned Unit Development be continued to the June 7th, 2023 BZA meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Piquel. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
We have 4 ayes, 1 nay.
There should be a roll vote on it. Call on that for the record.
All right, if you do the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Mundy,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Piquel,
Aye.
Ms. Postlewaite,
Nay, changed my vote.
Mr. Jones.
Nay.
The vote is 3-2, 3 in favor, 2 opposed. And I would ask if there's any further comments from the 2 nays that would be helpful before we conclude this.
I think at the core is,
Is the drainage.
I have no interest in granting variances that go across setback lines. There's no reason for it. And if within the scope and scale of the development and the builders and everybody else working in there, if they can't work within those lines, it's not an issue that really generates any kind of variance. The lots should be designed to accommodate the homes being built on them. The homes then should be sized appropriately, placed appropriately on the lot. And if things like pools and other accessory structures are wanted, it is everyone else's responsibility to see that they make the appropriate choices and decisions. And then to come in later and ask for variances and things like this, there's no hardship. It's just lack of planning. That is not a hardship.
Thank you.
I would agree.
I think the other, which you may have heard, is demonstrating a hardship, and we always have, there's always some difficulty. A hardship for one person is not a hardship for the next,
Sure.
and that's always a matter of some subjectivity, but that too was questioned. So
Understood.
we will plan to see you back
Appreciate it.
on June the 7th then.
I'll be here.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is docket number 2023-12-DSV, B Likens at 410 West Linden Street. Petition development standard variance to provide for a detached garage, which 1 deviates from the side yard setback, 2 deviates from the aggregate side setbacks, 3 memorializes the existing driveway, which deviates from the side yard setback in the urban village zoning district RV. Are the Likens here? Oh, okay, thank you. Could we have staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. The petitioner is requesting to demolish an existing detached garage and construct a new garage roughly in the same location. However, it'll be slightly larger in size. With the parcel being a corner lot on frontage both on Linden and 4th Street, it thus has 2 front yards and 2 side yards. The side yard being on the west and the north side, which is against the alley. The proposed garage is requesting to be 3 feet from the side yard and 0 foot from the north alley property line. The request is not encroaching any further than the setbacks existing today with the current garage. Along with the side yard request, the aggregate would then be also 3 feet and not meeting the 15-foot aggregate. Lastly, there's a request to memorialize the existing driveway location, which runs parallel to the side property line and does not meet the 5-foot setback. With the proposed garage not encroaching any further to the existing setbacks today, and other properties in the area also enjoying deviations from setbacks, further by meeting the aggregate, would move the garage more interior to the property, thus decreasing the usable open space, as well as possibly the size of the driveway. With that said, staff is favorable of the request and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Seeing none. Would the lichens please like to come to the podium? You give us your name and address, please, and then provide us with any information that you think we should have to consider this petition.
Hello, my name is Brett Lickens and I live at 410 Linden Street in Zionsville. And I think the staff has pretty much summarized it. And our goal is to maintain the charm of the neighborhood. But the current structure, although it looks nice, is unsafe and unusable as a garage. So our request is the ability to rebuild the garage in the current footprint, maintaining the look and the style as it is now. But moving, as she said, moving the new garage to meet the aggregate setbacks in the slot, we place it really in the middle of our backyard. So this would, kind of reduce the available green space on a corner lot, which is a lot of visibility as it is.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner? No. Seeing none, do we have anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this proposal? Any online? No, hearing none. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none.
Mayor, I just want to check something. Is this? Which petition had the comment about the difference in lot lines?
Not this one.
Not this one.
Got it. Okay. I was,
I was thinking the same thing.
all right, I was just,
Trying to separate my 2 garage projects.
yes, okay, never mind. All right.
Or if there are no questions, is there a motion on this petition? And I will point out just a procedural note. You may have seen this, Mr. Lyken, but it's noted that should this be approved, there are overhead lines in the general vicinity of the proposed garage. And if approved, the petitioner is encouraged to coordinate with the area utility before striking out. Is there a motion for this petition?
I move that docket number 2023-1212-DSV Development Standards Variance to provide for deviations from the side yard setbacks to 3 feet and 0 feet for the construction of a detached garage for the property located at 410 West Linden Street in the Urban Residential Village Zoning District RV be approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report and staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, and substantial compliance with the submitted site plan.
Thank you, Mrs. Postaway. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That variance is approved. Variance 2.
I move that docket number 2023-12-DSB Development Standards Variance to provide for a deviation of the aggregate side yard setback to 3 feet for the construction of a detached garage for the property located at 410 West Linden Street in the Urban Residential Village Zoning District RV be approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report and staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, and substantial compliance with the submitted site plan.
Thank you, Mrs. Postaway. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is that Mr. Patel?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Variance number 2 is approved.
Should I make it a clean sweep?
Go for it.
I move that docket number 2023-12- DSB Development Standards Variance DSB to provide for the memorialization of the existing driveway, which deviates from the side yard setback to 0 feet for the property located at 410 West Linden Street in the Urban Residential Village Zoning District RV, be approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report and staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, substantial compliance with the submitted site plan.
Thank you, Mrs. Postaway. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Variance number 3 is approved. Your project is approved. And again, I would mention the contacting the utility before you start construction. Best of luck.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is docket number 2023-13-DSV, D. Snyder at 4255 Strathmore Lane, Zionsville. Petition for development standard variance to decrease the rear setback to provide for a swimming pool in the Holiday Farms planned unit development. Staff, could we have a report from you?
It's also, this property is under construction and has had an active ILP on the property for the single family residence. The petitioner is proposing an in-ground swimming pool, which encroaches into the 30-foot minimum rear setback line. Per the petitioner and site plan, the request is for a 26-foot and 8-inch rear yard setback, which would encroach 3 feet and 4 inches into the required rear yard setback. The proposed pool wall would meet the 30-foot rear yard setback, but the concrete pool deck would be 26 foot 8 inches at its closest from the rear property line. Again, referencing that the town accommodates for different accessory structure setbacks in most residential zoning districts. However, that is not given in the Holiday Farms current PUD. It is staff's interpretation and opinion that strict application of the PUD does not result in unnecessary hardship in the use of the property. The site is not unique or provide any unusual circumstances of the condition of the site. The building permit was issued in August of 2021, and the location of the swimming pool and attached pool deck were not identified on the plot plan at that time. Options remain for the petitioner to move the pool, reduce the size, and or reduce the size of the concrete pool deck. Based on how the PUD ordinance is written today, staff is unfavorable of the request, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Hearing none, is there a representative or the Snyders here? Could you state your name and address, please?
Yeah, my name is Tyler Herman. I'm representing Pools of Fun, the contracted company for the pool. Our office address is 3891 Clarks Creek Road in Plainfield, 46168.
Thank you. If you would, you've heard the staff report, probably had seen it before arriving tonight. Give us some additional background, anything that you think might be helpful in considering this petition.
Yeah. As the first plan was drawn per our customers' likings, we had the pool and concrete and everything out past the building line. We indicated to him that ask is too large. If you look at the plan, we're, I think, 11 feet out off the house. Now we started almost 15 or 17 feet out off the house. We consulted him to try and pull that back in to minimize our ask. Our main goal at that point was certainly to keep the pool inside of the BSL, hoping that just a couple feet of concrete would, not cause any problems on neighboring properties, devalue anybody. The purpose of the size of the pool and the purpose of the size of the area around it, large family likes to entertain, needs a big pool, needs a bigger patio for that. We picked the 11'4" off the house simply to allow for furniture, lounge chairs to fit without making it a very tight walkway between the pool and the house. But again, our main goal was to try and keep as much inside of that setback specifically for the pool itself, to be inside of that setback, only asking for 3'4" concrete.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the petitioner? Petitioner's representative?
Did you, given that you do this for a living, you obviously deal with setback lines in various settings. Did you have a conversation with the folks in the planning office when you were just discussing the siting of this pool?
We did. I don't think we had discussion with them. We gave them our own consult to the homeowner, knowing the best thing we can do is to reduce the ask. I don't know that the homeowner spent any time in the planning office or not, but we certainly took that into account and really encouraged the move back in so that the ask was significantly less.
So they understood that there was a 30-foot setback at the back, at the rear.
I can't speak on their behalf, but I would assume that with it being labeled on the plot plan, but I don't believe this was planned at the time of construction. I think this is something they've decided to add after the plan. So, yeah.
Any other questions for the petitioner's representative?
Real quick, the grade behind this house actually rises, correct?
Yes.
So then outside of the concrete you're asking for, they're still going to need an additional retainage wall to change that grade, correct?
It slopes down.
Slopes up. Slopes down or slopes up?
We need him to testify.
If you come to the microphone and give us your name so that we can, for the sake of getting minutes for the meeting.
My name is Jake Smith. I work with Pools of Fun and I've been working with the Snyders. The property slopes downward until the property line, which it then moves upward onto the golf course.
I think what you're seeing, Larry, is the existing grade, not as it's graded for construction. I noticed the same thing. I was thinking the same thing.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got your answer, Larry.
Correct. Yes.
Any other questions for the petitioner's representative? Hearing none, is there anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this project? Anyone online? Thank you. Any further discussion among the board?
I would just comment that it seems to me, and I'm looking, this is about almost a half an acre lot here. And again, this seems to be a case of inconvenience versus hardship. And I suspect that more of these will arise as this Holiday Farms has more construction, as people want to be able to maximize what they can have in their backyard. So like Larry, I think if in fact the homeowners are unhappy with that 30-foot setback or the 25-foot setback that exists in some of the other parts of Holiday Farms, perhaps they should be organizing to petition the Plan Commission to change the ordinance. But I'm disinclined to be the arbiter of essentially what is a standard that's been put in place in that HUD. So I'm fearful that we'll have 20 of these. So.
Well, we started with 4 on tonight's agenda.
Right.
So
we're well on our way to that 20.
Just a couple more.
And it has, I believe it has been noted on each of these, which I think you would have seen, and this really is not something that would be probably for the pool company to do, but there is the possibility of, if Holiday Farms wishes to make an amendment, a change to their planned unit development, that can be done and seen by the Plan Commission. And as you've probably already heard this evening, that probably would entail making certain that those changes don't also adversely affect drainage or anything else. But that's part of what assures the homeowner that they have a good plan and they're building in a development that's taking care of that. So,
Do you want a motion?
yes, please.
I move the docket 2023-13 DSV Development Standard Variance to provide for a deviation of the rear yard setback to 26 feet, 8 feet for the construction of a swimming pool for the property located at 4255 Strathmore Lane in the Holiday Farms Plan Unit Development be denied as presented and described.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Postaway. All those in favor of denial, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So the petition is denied. And obviously you're going to take other routes to correct that so that your
Is there,
homeowner will be able to do something.
may I ask a question in follow up to that? I think you said earlier that these are all looked at individually, and I certainly respect that. I'm not challenging your vote. I'm looking on how to consult our customers moving forward. I understand that your vote is higher than what the HOA and Mr. Hinkie is telling the folks in that community, that as long as it is less than 5 feet of an encroachment, they're going to pass it every time. Obviously, that's him and not you. My question to you is, I understand that something was approved in January for this same situation. May I ask, or can someone follow up with what the conditions of that approval was versus what we're asking for now? Because it seems that it's just a hard no now, no matter what, but it was previously approved.
Yeah, the situation with that previous project is different.
Okay.
The town had issued a permit
Okay.
for that pool at that location. And likewise, the town did not place a stop work order on that pool. So the property owner, in good faith, proceeded with building the pool into a setback.
Okay.
Under a permit. And so there was, when the project came to this board, the board looked at that as a hardship, that actually there's practical
Understood.
difficulty
Understood.
imposed on that landowner. So,
Yep. Very fair answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to be clear, on stuff like that, we do have the right not to grant a variance to cover that stuff up, at which point the pool gets removed.
Absolutely.
I guess I had not heard this if it's within 5 feet. But if indeed that is the position that the developer is taking, they could amend their PUD ordinance and allow that to be done without the ARB or the BZA reviewing it.
I think I would recommend that the homeowners go to the developer and explain to him that as much as he's granting the permission to do this, in fact, that's not the way this is determined. And in fact, if he feels that it's fine that they're encroaching on the setback, then they should moderate or change the current ordinance rather than his giving, permission one person at a time there. So
I agree. I think perhaps you can be the messenger for us.
That'd be great. Just to make sure I understand that, right? You're saying, I mean, it's the board's position that if he wants to take the stance to reduce setbacks to allow more of this, you are going to require drainage studies and everything else. I mean, this isn't something that would be done without that.
I think that would be up to the plan commission if they came and approached.
Yeah, that would be the plan commission. We do have 2 plan commission members on the BZA, but it would be the full plan commission. I think it would have to make that.
And I don't disagree with Larry's position. If you don't have the lot coverage requirements, your assumption is that your buildable area is everything inside the setbacks. If you move the setbacks out, you then increase the buildable area, which means you would have to calculate for additional runoff. So his logic is spot on.
Holds water.
Yeah, or doesn't.
Or doesn't really.
Depending how big the ponds are.
And should that be approved, long shot, obviously, should that be approved, the existing plot plans that show a 30-foot setback, will they need to be resurveyed? Or will this be something that we could still show on a 30-foot setback? Again, I'm just asking for future reference.
That 30-foot setback would probably be removed or relocated. the 25 example or 20-foot setback.
But what about on an existing survey?
But that
that's-
would no longer be accurate.
Okay,
Because
so
we
that'd
have
have to be
to do-
resurveyed. Okay. All right, thanks again.
You're welcome. Next item on the agenda is docket number 2023-14-DSV in Bridenstine, 445 West Walnut Street in Zionsville. Petition for a development standard variance to provide for a deck, walkway, and fire pit which exceed the allowable lot coverage in the urban village residential zoning district RV. Staff, could we have a report on that, please?
Yes, the petitioner is proposing to construct a deck, fire pit with patio and a walkway with pervious pavers. Currently, the residence is under construction. A 2% increase for pervious materials can be utilized because they're using pavers, therefore bringing the permitted lot coverage to 37%. The petitioner is requesting a proposed lot coverage of 42%. The request to occupy the sites with improvements associated with the deck, fire pit, paver patios, and excess of lot coverage is not uncommon in the RV zoning district. The request is seeking to improve the site with uses commonly enjoyed in other properties in the area. Also, other properties in the area also enjoy deviations of lot coverage requirements. Also noting that the improvements are pervious and not impervious structures or covered. Staff gives this a favorable recommendation and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
This is when we got the letter regarding the deed gap. Correct?
No, that's the
No.
last one.
That's the next one.
All right.
I do have a question, and that is that in their narrative, they talk about a fairly sophisticated way to handle drainage, increased drainage because of the slope of the property. If this would be approved, will we need to stipulate that program will be followed?
Yes, that's up to you all. I had reached out to the petitioner and DPW and have not received any official comment regarding drainage. So maybe the petitioner can speak more to that, but I think you all are open to putting any conditions you'd want to regarding drainage.
So asking our counsel, if the petitioner provides a letter stating, which they did, stating that they're installing these as part of the project, they're then obligated, if we approve the petition, to install them.
Correct.
Okay, so
Sorry, Larry, it's not the next one. It's the second one after
I'll
this.
tell you.
Will you
We
poke
will
me a
get
little?
there. All right, any further questions for staff? Hearing none. The Bridenstine's here. If you'd come to the podium and state your name and address, please, and then give us any additional information that might be helpful to us to make this decision.
Of course I will. My name is Martin Bridenstine. I live at 11031 Brentwood Avenue, Zionsville, Indiana. I just start out by saying that my wife and I have always wanted to live in town, and we live in Coventry Ridge right now. It's over by Zionsville. Zion Aqua. And I'm retired now, and we're going to live in a house that we expect to age in place in. We found a lot, and the house that was on it needed to be taken down because the foundation was crumbling and stuff like that. So we did that. We put the house on the lot, and I worked with Suzanne about the variances and lot coverages and stuff. And then we ran into after we built the house, that it has a detached garage in the back. And rather than take it down, we just refurbished it and made it look nice again. But that caused us to have difficulty with lot coverage. So I'm asking the board for the opportunity to put in the deck, the walkway that would go from the back of the house to the garage.
throw in a fire pit. And there's a little explanation on that here in just a moment. That gets us over a little bit over the lot coverage. I had originally I had a architect kind of give me some ideas on a plan, and we started with that, and you should have that with you. Evan Anderson has that. And then I talked with a professional landscaper about making it a little bit better because my neighbor, he was getting a lot of water from the runoff, because we do have about 3 to 4 feet of pitch from the one side of the house to the other on the lot. And so designing this with the professional landscaper helped us to that I hope we can mitigate the runoff problems. So we have a couple of different things. There's the flow wells for the will be installed for the down spouts. We've got the sub water from the sump pump that will go into a gravel well, and then actually the fire pit with a wall on one side actually raises up the aggregate level of the lot, so that we can maybe keep some runoff from going onto the other lots that are they are actually east of us, but kind of downwind, if you will. Well, I'm also looking at trying to allow those, if I can fit it in, we want to put another gravel well right next to the garage and funnel water into there, and then that will go out, so that we, as best as possible, mitigate the water flow during rainage and stuff like that. And that's the reason for that, for the plan, and one of the reasons for the overage on the lot coverage. Do you have any questions?
Question for the petitioner? I can tell you, I think most of us are appreciative of the fact that you took into consideration the drainage issues that do occur in the village. And we have at least one drainage expert on the board here, who I think if he hadn't heard some of this, he probably would have been asking. So thank you for that.
I did actually call them, talk to the storm department, and I talked to Bobby, I think it was. And he, we talked, and actually the Tesco drainage stuff was approved by the storm department at one point. So I kind of tried to work with people ahead of time, so because I'd really like to have permission to do this.
It usually pays off. Thank
Okay.
you. There are no other questions. Are there any remonstrators here or online who wish to speak for or against the project? Seeing none. Is there any further discussion among the board?
I guess, so. So what I want to confirm is that the gravel sumps and everything that you described here are basically items that you're intending to do, but aren't really designed as of yet. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know that. Yes, they're on the plan. I did have to move the one from the Tesco plan on because the professional landscaper said that it needed to be moved a little bit to the right or left, but it's only, I'm thinking only 6 to 8 feet is, we're still going to follow the plan.
Okay. So previously, when we've had these kind of projects come before us for an increase in lot coverage with the offset of putting some sort of stormwater retainage on the site, we've actually, as part of the package, received the design from the I was trying to think what engineering firm put those together.
Badger.
Yeah.
Those were significant overages.
Okay.
We've done numerous in the low 40s that we haven't asked for, and they haven't provided additional drainage.
And that was when there's getting up close to 50%, correct?
And maybe even north of
Yeah.
50 on one of them, 55.
There's no further discussion. Is there a motion to be made?
Sure. I move the docket number 2023-14-DSV Development Standards Variance to provide for an increase in lot coverage to 42% for the construction of a deck, fire pit, and pervious patio for the property located at 445 West Walnut Street in the Urban Residential Village Zoning District RV. Be approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report and staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, and substantial compliance with the submitted site plans.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Postaway. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Best of luck with your project, Mr. Brightson.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Next item on the agenda is docket number 2023-15-DSV. Gracie. 3963 Club Ridge Estates in Zionsville. Petition for a development standard variance to decrease the rear setback to provide for a swimming pool, spa, and patio in the Holiday Farms Plan Unit Development. Staff, do we have your report?
Yes, thank you. Currently, there is single family residence being constructed on this parcel, which has been permitted. The petitioner is proposing an in-ground swimming pool, which encroaches on the 30-foot minimum rear setback line. Per the petitioner in the site plan, the request is for a 25-foot rear yard setback, which would encroach 5 feet into the setback line to accommodate for both the pool deck and a patio. Again, the town zoning ordinances, within the town zoning ordinance, we allow for different setbacks for accessory structures, and Holiday Farms does not give accommodations for those. It's staff's opinion that strict application of the PUD does not result in unnecessary hardship in the use of the property. The site is not unique or provide any unusual circumstances of the condition of the site. The building permit for the resident was issued in August of 2021, and the location of the swimming pool and attached pool deck were identified on the plot plan at that time and showed that the accessory structures were meeting the required setbacks again at that time. Options remain open to the petitioner to move the pool, reduce the size, or reduce the size of the concrete pool deck or patio. Based on how the PUD ordinance is currently written today, staff is unfavorable of the request, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions for staff? You see on the initial filing of the plan, it did meet the setback requirements.
Based from what I could tell on the plot plan, they showed a pool and a patio, and it did meet the required setbacks at that time.
There are no other questions. Could the petitioner come to the microphone, please? You'd give us your name and address, please, and then provide us with information that you think will be important for us to know for this petition.
My name is Sammy Shute. I am a representative of PJE Lawn Care and Landscaping, who is the designer and project builder of this project or proposed project at 4141 Kingman Drive, Indianapolis 46226. We are requesting a variance into the setback. It's currently marked at 30 foot, and we are requesting a 25 foot. So we're just going in 5 feet. Our patio space does fall within the 30-foot setback with an amount of 45 square feet of patio space. The reason this really came about was once the pool permit was to be looked at, or the pool was going in for permitting, the only space that they had a question about was the corner next to the pool deck, or that was the pool deck, the 30-foot space. It was brought to my attention the other 15-ish square foot space of their little fire pit patio. And we have been able to get the pool permit for that project in the end. So we are just looking for this town's approval to go into the setback of the 5 feet. I definitely understand that the BZA and the HOA are complete separate entities, and that even if the BZA does approve it, doesn't necessarily that the HOA will. We have not had any issues with the HOA. They haven't come back and said no. I personally did not do the petition with the HOA. Our home builder did, and we didn't get any denial or anything from them that I am aware of. So I'm really just looking to hopefully get this approved.
Okay, thank you. Any question for the petitioner's representative?
I have a question, and that is based on the plot that was submitted when they pulled the original permit. This is scope, is this a scope creep? I mean, is this just a much bigger project than it was originally when it was first presented to get the permits? Because it looks to me as if they've added a number of things here that have created the problem in encroaching on the setback. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I would say that the homeowners were looking for more entertaining space. They are doctors and they own their own practices, so they're going to host quite often. They also have a few kids. So entertaining space is very important to them. So that's why they wanted to extend their opportunities to use their space.
What grade does this pool sit at? Is it at the basement level or closer to the first floor or somewhere in between?
From my knowledge of reading prints, it would be plus. So the basement walkout is minus 18 from the basement, and the pool elevation is plus 90 inches. So it would be a bit higher. So
Are there retainage walls then built around this thing?
yes,
And those will then further encroach across the building setback line?
yes, but that we weren't, that was never questioned in our, or brought up in our working for this.
Getting questioned now.
Well, the HOA, in other words, the HOA didn't question it?
No.
Well, not their job. I think.
Right.
The retaining wall, not an accessory structure.
It's structural though.
You can have a retaining wall at your property. Staff.
From what I've, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand that fences and retaining walls they don't have to meet setbacks. Correct. So not.
Now there's an issue if they're in the utility easement.
Yes.
Well,
Word. Drainage easement.
Or yeah,
Drainage easement.
drainage utility, yeah.
the issue, and once again, I've got the same issue when you come to the basement windows that allow for basement bedrooms.
Mhm.
There's a difference between a retainage wall that is there for landscaping purposes, where the structure of the basement, it's a structure of the residence falls within the setback lines, yet a landscaping wall carries over it. The over under I've always put to anything is if you can dig it out and put it back without structurally affecting the nature of whatever it's supporting. So if you dig out a landscaping retainage wall that crosses over a setback or into a utility easement, it can be put back. It's inconvenient, but it does not structurally affect the residents. This situation with the pool where it sits at this grade, take out those retainage walls, the pool collapses. Means they're structural, which means they should be included in whatever we're seeing. Second, we're back to the same issue. Originally, they submitted a set of drawings that met the needs, met the requirements, were within the setback, and now they've increased or expanded or changed their plan. You know, it just doesn't meet a hardship.
Yeah, the plot plan showed the pool at 20 by 36. The pool is 20 by 40. So there's, some of your tip of your triangle poking out over the line. And you could easily slide the pool south to get this out of the line. Just like you could take the four little seats at the fire pit and slide it I said south, plan south. Not quite true south. To your point, not necessarily a hardship, inconvenience. Or Postal Waite's previous comment.
Any other questions for the petitioner's representative? Do we have anyone who wishes to speak for or against this project? Online? No, thank you. Was there a conclusion on the retaining wall there? I followed with, if you could take it out, replace it, and it didn't affect the resident.
Well, my core issue is what we're being presented doesn't really represent what they intend to build.
Okay.
That's item number one for me. Which, so. Secondly, you want me to make the motion and, we can answer my own question.
Motion.
Well, let me answer my own question. I move that docket 2023-15 DSV development standard variance to provide for a deviation of the rear yard setback to 25 feet for the construction of a pool deck patio for the property located at 3963 Club Ridge Estates and the Holiday Farms Plan Unit Development B denied as presented and described.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Postaway. There's a motion to deny docket number 2023-15 DSV. That has been made and seconded. All those in favor of denial, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So the motion is denied, the petition is denied. And I guess, Mike, I think it may be worthwhile we have a little discussion later about how we, going back to the developer with an understanding of what we're faced with and one approach that they could take.
Yes.
And part of that is a difference in information that they're receiving there is not helpful.
Right. Okay.
And you've got clients that are spending money on design,
Right.
spending money on essentially attorneys coming in here to file these petitions because their developer just says, go do it.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Great.
That is a hardship.
We're creating a hardship.
Yeah.
They're creating the hardship. Yeah.
All right,
No.
thank you.
Now.
Last item on the agenda,
Yeah.
docket number 2023-16 DSV. George, well, I won't, try not to massacre your name. Georgieski?
Yes, he's my client I'm representing.
Oh, okay. I haven't insulted you. At 365 West Cedar Street, Zionsville, Indiana, petition for development standard variance to provide for a home addition, which one deviates from lot coverage, two deviates from the aggregate side setbacks, and three memorializes an existing side yard setback of the single-family residential home in the urban village zoning district RV. Staff, could we have your report, please?
Yes, the petitioner is proposing to construct a 150 square foot, one-story addition to the east side of the property to accommodate for a bedroom addition. The proposed addition will necessitate the variance of the aggregate side yard and lot coverage. The proposed addition will be 5 feet from the east side. And then the existing setback on the west side is 3 feet, thus making the aggregate 8 feet and not meeting the 15-foot aggregate. Also with the addition brings the lot coverage to 40%. Permitted lot coverage at this location is 37% due to the existing brick paver patios. Lastly, there is a request to memorialize the existing side yard setback on the west side, which the residence is 3 feet from the property line. The request in excess and lot coverage and aggregate is not uncommon in in the RV zoning district. Given the unique and historic characteristics of the property, along with the scale and placement of the existing improvements, staff is favorable of the request. Further, back to Larry's point, we had received a letter from a neighbor kind of concerned with the survey being inaccurate versus the plot plan. Again, typically the town doesn't get involved with property line concerns or disputes. However, the petitioner has told me that they plan to do a survey before getting the improvement location permit, but he can probably speak more to that. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Hearing none, the petitioner's representative is here. Could state your name and address and then give us any relative information that you think we need to have to make a decision, please.
Good evening. I'm Mark Peters, 6995 Covington Street, Lebanon, 46052. I'm a semi-retired architect helping Stephen Gorgevsky draw up his little documents for variance and for building permit for a beachy constructor to, if allowed, to do the bedroom addition. When we prepared the drawing, we started with a set of drawings prepared for this property several years ago. So my property line dimensions have to be reconciled, and that's what Susan's talking to. We had the plot plan, the deed from Boone County, and we also had the acquisition vacancy of the alley, and we didn't have that included by Boone County in the total plot plan. So a couple of things have happened, and then our neighbor was talking to him, and he did then provide this letter to that Han Surveying put property stakes on the east side of our property, the side of which our addition is going to go to, and they did his farthest east line. We have a property iron stake on our west side, so I've got to reconcile those. And I do want to say we have set the 5-foot setback line from the property line, and that's what we will have to meet, so we don't have to build over and come back and plead a hardship. I don't want to do that, and you don't either, but I will reconcile those dimensions with Han's survey with the steel pins, and I'll prepare a document. And my question is, we have the steel pins located, and we will do an accurate dimension and setback and dimensions of the house. Now, I'm an architect. I could do the drawing and certify it, or should I have Deckard Engineering prepare the plot plan based on that information? I'll leave it up to you. I can do it. I don't think it's a gray area here. The pins are set, so I'll come back in a month with that, unless you would allow me to let Susan act on it, but I'll leave it to you to give me direction on how you'd like me to proceed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Peters. I think surely we'll be able to come up with an answer to how you should proceed before leaving this evening. But are there any other questions that the board might have for the petitioner's representative? I think you were holding up this drawing, which was the old survey. Is that correct?
That one is from the neighbor
Yes.
on the east side, which the property steel iron pins are located and painted. And then on our plot plan at the far, okay, let's see, so here's Cedar Street. You're looking at the Han survey for here. And the steel pins are set here and here, and there's a steel pin set on Stevens lot. So we have the exact dimension, and if we line it out this way, we're looking for a building addition of, it's going to be less than 12 feet. I've got 12 there, but I'm going to say it will be 5 feet plus a few inches, just so we have a little bit of cushion there. It'll meet the setback line, and pins are there. I think I can do this if you'll let me. Thank you.
Mr. President, I have a question. Can we go forward when, given that there would be inaccuracies in the petition as it's been submitted? I mean, when we're talking about a difference in what the existing setback would be, I mean, does it need to be modified or amended, or what's?
So along that line, I think though, the plan shows a 5-foot setback. So what would be inaccurate is that the addition would be slightly smaller and the lot coverage would be slightly smaller. So I think I'm wondering if we can approve it, noting that the plans show a 5-foot setback.
You can.
And that the homeowner provide an as-built survey to the planning department upon completion of the project.
Certainly do that, knowing as Mr. Roberts noticed that the discrepancy, if it is not resolved in your favor or your client's favor, the building addition will be a little bit smaller just to meet that 5-foot setback requirement.
Yeah, and he understands that, but we also understand we have to be at the 5-foot or greater setback. So yeah, very conscientious of that.
So we could approve this with the 5-foot setback, and the confirmation of the survey would determine how large the addition will be.
Correct.
I mean, the Han survey ought to show both the property corners and the existing house.
They show the lot on the east side. Again, we are if here's,
if you stay close to the microphone, please.
okay, yeah, if here's Cedar Street. No. Okay. Thank you. This is our site, 365 Cedar Street, and
You can use the overhead that might.
oh,
You okay?
oh, okay, cool, okay. Okay. Okay, north being then to the left. We have Cedar Street. And then here is the building addition. And the Han survey is for this property across the east side. So the Han survey establishes the steel pin at the corner and at the north end and at the south end. And our property line noted by the black dot is now half of the 10-foot alley vacate, and that deed and that was amended in this paper from Boone County. They added just a few weeks ago. It was approved by Zionsville several years ago, but they're just catching up to the lot deed correction. So again, I would assure you that the 5-foot setback line will be adhered to. We will reconcile the dimensions. And we will construct this 5 feet off the property line to meet or exceed the 5-foot setback.
The homeowner is aware that should his neighbor be correct, that he will wind up with a smaller addition.
Well, yep, he and I, the three of us talked last week, and he says, this is fine with me. And he says, I've got something to share. And I said, yeah, I know we may be smaller. So we've already had that discussion, and there's really no wiggle room about it. We have to be, behind the setback lines.
Will there be an eave on the structure?
What?
An eave? Will there be an eave, an overhang? Eave?
Yeah, 12 inches. The building setback line is to the building or the eave?
That's my question too. I don't know the answer to that.
Building.
Building,
I think it's
Building.
the building. Is it from the footer?
face to face a wall.
Yeah.
Some places do the eave. I'm
Right.
well aware of that. And
Okay.
I didn't see that, but
That's in your favor this time.
yeah.
So just clarify, Han Surveying has surveyed lot and put pins out for lot 127.
Right.
The lot to the east,
Right.
but the lot 126, your clients, has never been surveyed.
No, but the property pins are there, so a surveyor could come out and locate those pins and establish the plot plan,
So
or I could do it, or it's obvious.
well, I guess the fix is to have and not. Okay. All right. I'm familiar with working around what's called a deed gap, where the legal description for one piece of property and the legal description from two leave either a overlap or a void between the two properties. And that's basically what we've got going on here. What I'm hearing is that what we're trying to do is rely on the pins that have been put in place for lot 127 to determine where lot 126 is.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like Boone County's old survey just doesn't have, it has some dimensional inaccuracies, probably not at the edges of the property, but probably from the property lines to the building structures.
Okay.
And so, what was referenced was what was available. And the homeowner next door pointed out that he believes he sees something different, which I think the petitioner recognizes to be accurate.
So the fix is to have Han or a surveyor provide a as-built survey of the existing residence. With that in hand, then you'd have clarity whether or not the existing structure sits 12 feet off what is basically the old alley edge or not.
But when I said as built, I was meaning after they built the addition, not before they built the
I understand, but that might be too late.
addition. I mean,
But if you can clarify where the existing house sits, and then that document can be used to clear all this up. And then if that shows, if you end up with, and a quick question is, so the alley that's been vacated, do the legal descriptions then now incorporate that, or is that what you were saying earlier, that they're lagging?
There is a legal description on the deed and alley vacate, which was included in the, there's the deed from Boone County on the lot, and then the alley vacate, and first page, the last several paragraphs. It describes the beginning at the northeast corner of lot 127 and south therefore and there too. And that's
So-
part of which Han Engineering used to locate the pins for the alley dimension. And so that's this document from Boone County.
The letter from the adjacent homeowner did provide a document number and an ordinance referencing the vacation of the alley.
Okay.
And I don't know what was included in that document, whether there were surveys or.
I can clarify a little bit about the
Sure.
vacation question. So the vacation did go through town council, I think in 2019. However, when I got the BZA submittal, it didn't, on the Boone County GIS, it did not show that it was vacated on their end. So since this petition's come before us, we've corrected that with Boone County. So I don't know if it's up to date today, but they were working towards it. Because it wasn't done on their end yet.
Normally so the Boone County Recorder's Office doesn't receive those unless they're forwarded to them by whether it was petitioner's attorney or the town council or whoever. I mean, it happens not just in Zionsville, but Whitestown and everywhere else. And so once the Boone County Recorder's Office receives it, they give it an instrument number, and then they send it to the GIS department so that the GIS can accurately reflect that, half of the alley goes to each property owner. The deed itself is not automatically updated to include that. You would have to request a deed revision. And so sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But then, when somebody goes to sell the property, that's part of the title search process. They say, okay, here's the original lot description. Oh, I see that, okay, in 2019, the alley was vacated, and so we're adding 5 feet to it. But the deed itself would not normally be updated without having an attorney file a new one.
So I'm probably the least knowledgeable about surveying and so on, and sitting here, but this all feels very squishy to me because it seems to me that what we're hearing is that there's not a firm and fast determination of what the property line is.
Correct.
And
Documented on paper.
well, but I mean, all right, I mean, it's like standing and saying, yeah, we go right on. I mean, that probably is what we need, is something that's documented on paper. In order to know what the setback is, you need to know what the line is, it's property line. And so we're talking about doing something to sort of make sort of resolve the problem without actually resolving the problem, in that it seems to me that the thing to do is to have that line surveyed, have a firm and fixed idea what the property line is, and then you can determine whether we're giving the appropriate remediation here. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand the idea of saying, okay, well, we can still go ahead, even though we're not really certain what the property line is.
So the
Isn't that what
property
we're
line is firm and fixed. It is identified by the pins that exist on site. It's just not documented as such in the legally recorded documents. And so what I'm suggesting is that as long as they use those pins to establish their 5-foot setback per their drawing, and build their building so that it is not within that 5-foot setback. And then, because he said it may be 5 foot, maybe 5 foot 3 inches, because they don't want to be just right, coming a few inches over is better. Then have them do the survey after it's built, knowing that they must meet the 5 foot. Then we get a drawing that is of the as-built condition that then we know to be true moving forward in the future.
Okay.
That was why I suggested that.
The pins that are in place can include the vacated, half of the vacated alley, or no?
Yes, we in the month of March, Suzanne said we don't have this quite correct. So I visited Boone County Surveyor's Office and she amended the site. This third page says lots 126 and 27, they're giving 5 feet of vacated alley to each of them. And like you just said, they don't This was done 2 years ago, given to them, but they didn't have it in their books
Right,
until
the
I.
pins that we're referencing also include the 5 feet of the alley, vacated alley
No.
that's been.
It doesn't, it wouldn't matter if they did. or
Well-
not. As long as they're set, you can measure the 10 foot plus, plus the 5 foot to get to the. There just needs to be an understanding, is it the existing property line location or is it the center alley location?
And here's where I'm grinding away at. What this document is and the pins that they're talking about and the surveying was done for lot 127. The lot to the east of the lot you're working on. Correct?
Correct.
And the pins that are in place do not include the vacated alley area. Is that correct?
Correct.
The document, though, also shows that the barn or the garage that is on lot 126 sitting much closer to the alley than what is on the document we're being provided.
Yeah. Correct.
my-
That barn location was hypothetically.
My statement and I think the request would clarify this is one, have a survey done of lot 126. Include the alley land, include the house and the existing garage. And that should clarify, because then once those pins are set, once lot 126 is truly surveyed and pin it, including the alley, it should be 5 feet from the new pins to the old pins on lot 127. If there's a variance there, then there's a deed gap or something's wonky. If they line up, if it lines up, there's a 5 foot difference, then he has an existing, what I would call an as-built of the existing house in place. He can use that moving forward. Now, if we want to grant a variance, and as long as he provides that document confirming, we could grant the 5 foot, we could grant him the variance of the side yard setbacks he needs. And all he needs to do then is go out and get a surveyed document. As architect, he could add on the addition, provide it, and it all meets. If after the survey, though, they find out there's some sort of either overlap between the property lines or gap between them, those two neighbors may need to clean that up. And the problem may actually be with lot 127. They may be on.
So you just want to see, you're fine approving the petition, you just want to see the survey document revised and provided prior to construction versus after construction.
For lot 126.
Correct.
And if I were the person building it, I would want to be sure that
You're
there was
correct.
not going to be some surprise down the road. I mean,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just a conservative type of person.
Yeah, well,
I guess,
and my suggestion was exactly what you're saying, that they have, somebody's got to survey it to figure
Right.
out where to put the house.
Right.
I'm just saying, there's no need for me, and I don't think there's any need for the town to get a copy of that survey that doesn't have the actual built addition on it. Have them go ahead and survey it to locate where the property line is, build the addition, but then provide that as-built survey with the addition after it's been done. Not a proposed drawing with the addition,
I understand.
because they got to survey it either way.
But I'm saying.
I get what you're saying.
Get it
It
pinned
just-
before.
the town just ends up with a drawing, not with an accurate addition on it, with an assumed addition. When we could have a drawing that has
I don't know.
an actual addition.
We just saw a fairly modern structure at probably another couple of zeros that we had multiple site plans on. So, I mean.
Yeah.
And those were off by dozens of feet. So we're just batting around.
I would add that the survey question should be resolved before they get a building permit.
Correct.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
And we- but we can-
Otherwise, it might be too late.
I think what everyone is saying is they need to have a survey.
Right.
Correct.
And what Chris is suggesting is we could have an after built, but they have to have a survey to know where that 5 feet
Right.
ends.
And we can grant the variance
Right.
now.
I tend to agree with Chris that I would rather have an as-built for the town at the end survey than a preliminary survey before the as-bills without knowing exactly where that's going to end up being. It's going to be I think you put a hardship on the property owner. By doing it prior to, but I completely understand that we want to protect both property owners. So,
And I would like to go ahead and do it before we get the building permit. Because after the fact, I don't want to be in a, oh, we missed it by that much. So may I suggest this? I will get Deckard Civil Survey Engineering to prepare a plot plan. I will ask them to, the area of concern is our east property line. And the concern is, did Han set those pins for the adjacent property in the right spot? And if they can certify that that's correct, that would then establish our property line is correct, because what I hear from my civil people is to go back through all the archives to try to find out what meets and bounds and descriptions were ever written 100 years ago or 10 years ago. It's a laborious task. So if I could ask you if Hans Survey certifies the pin locations and we could work off of that, that's the line we're working towards with our addition. Would that be suitable?
Fine.
You motion it.
Huh?
So I'm gonna let you motion it.
Yeah, I think, let's, well, are there any remonstrators? Did I ask that already? I don't think so. The one that, the neighbor is not online evidently. So we've now satisfied all that. And why don't we, and I'm not sure who was offering up here to forward a motion, but let's have a motion. You'll be able to hear that motion and make sure you understand it as well, so that we don't have a two property owners or one that's not that is disappointed with the outcome.
So should we continue it so you can go get the survey done?
Yes, we can do that.
Let's just do that.
I think that's.
Okay.
Going to do that. I think that's,
All right.
that may not be the most.
Yeah, we'll just hear it a second time, but that is the most certain way of getting everything done right.
Do we have to read and continue each variance?
Just continue.
Just in case.
Just in case number.
You got there in front of you.
Hmm.
You got the info. I have mine.
I've got
So all of them, each of them?
No.
I know, just one
case
number.
Okay. I move that docket number 2023-16-DSD be continued. Is that sufficient?
June
To
7th.
To the June 7th,
6:30 PM.
6:30 PM.
second,
Thank you, Mrs. Postway. Thank you for the second, Mr. Hell. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. So the motion is continued to the June 7th meeting, and during that time, you'll have the survey confirmed for us that we'll know where the 5-yard setback is.
We can do that. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
Thank you. That
Well,
brings us to the end. Is there anything else that needs discussed?
I have one comment, if I may, for the record. The petitions that were denied, typically what we've done is continue them to the next meeting. And our council has established those negative findings of fact to sign at the next meeting.
I think that is fine. We should just proceed with using that same approach. The other, which I suppose doesn't have to be part of the minutes of this meeting, but that is the follow-up with the developer here. Correct. Yeah. So that they understand why we've denied these. And that they do have a remedy. It appears that they have already remedied it themselves, but for us, it's not a remedy. And
In addition to the false information that most perpetuating about, it was a 5 foot over or 5 foot encroachment. Somehow the BZA is going to grant those. Yeah.
Well, it's the same rules they have on the golf course. Within 5 feet of the hole, it's in.
I don't know where you play, but that's essentially where I play.
yeah,
No, I
I wish
Start playing with Larry more than, well, after the first 12
is that
pack, you know.
People who, based on that information, will continue to spend money to make plans that ultimately then come to us and they're upset because we say, no, you can't do that. So.
Yeah, exactly. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lake and Mr. Jones. We'll consider one a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Good meeting.